Hello everyone, welcome back to my Simi Speaks about what happened to Omen of the Stars. This is a part 2. If you want to check out part 1, it'll be a video card right here, and it'll also be a link down in the description below, so you should really check out that video first. I talk a lot about the writing style of Omen of the Stars, and it's pretty interesting if I do say so myself. Anyway though, this is part 2, so here we go. At the end of part 1, I mentioned that I was going to start talking about the themes of Omen of the Stars, and trying to figure out what exactly Omen of the Stars was trying to say to us as an audience. Of course, this is a series about cats that fight each other out in the woods, so it might not seem like it could have much to say, but I'd beg to differ just from looking at the other series. In The Prophecies Begin, there's a lot of themes going around, all of which I could talk at length on, but for the sake of time, I think one of the biggest themes is faith. Faith in yourself, faith in your clan, what happens when you lose faith or when you have no faith, and you could also stretch it to include how too much faith in yourself could lead to your downfall, or how others' faith in us makes us stronger. In the new prophecy, the theme that most strongly comes to mind is unity. How do we overcome our differences to join together? How do we unify to reach a better place for everyone? Is the bond of family more important than the bond of friendship or love? Is the bond of love more important than the bond of family? The new prophecy has some strong ideas that I'll admit I find poorly executed, but they still have something to say. Now, the power of 3 is where things start to get tricky. My buddy Lizard Wizard has a whole video on his channel talking about the power of 3, and he mostly sums up my thoughts, but I figured I'd throw my 2 cents in here. It's hard to pin down an exact theme per se, but if I had to go with one, I'd say it's responsibility. How do you live with the responsibility you hold over the lives of others? How do your actions affect those around you? What do you do when you're challenged? Do you do the responsible thing, or does the situation get the better of you, and you only look after your own needs? Throughout Power of 3, we see Jayfeather, Lionblaze, and Hollyleaf all fail in their responsibilities. Jayfeather spies on people and is distrustful, Lionblaze nearly kills Crowfeather in his bloodlust, and of course, the big one, Hollyleaf kills Ashfur. But there are times where the 3 are responsible and do take action in a positive way. But that leads to more questions the reader might ask, like, should they have meddled in the first place? Is the responsible thing to do to pry and do things yourself, or leave what isn't your business well enough alone? The books are never clear on what the right answer might be, but it definitely doesn't shy away from the 3 sticking their nose into every little thing going on. And if I had to guess from what I've read of Dawn of the Clan so far, some of the main themes there are probably going to be family and guilt. This is only an educated guess so far on my behalf, but I'll let you know what I think when I finish that series. So back to Omen of the Stars. What was it trying to say? Well, I think it says a lot of little things. The bond between siblings is certainly important in this series. Ivypool and Dovewing are good sisters to each other, and they end up working out their differences. The broken duo of Lionblaze and Jayfeather without Hollyleaf is interesting, when the errands give time to it anyway, but neither of these elements play a strong enough role in the story overall that I would count it as a theme for the series. It's there. It's definitely there, but it's so often overlooked and underexplored that without headcanoning a lot of what coulda, shoulda, woulda been in great scenes, the books really don't say much about it. Sometimes Omen of the Stars even seems to have scenes where it's trying to tie themes or meaning into the narrative, and it just falls completely flat. Take any scene with Yellowfang, for example. Yellowfang is constantly fussing over Jayfeather about him not taking the prophecy seriously enough, or pushing for the medicine cats to forsake their code in favor of only helping their own clan. And Yellowfang at numerous points even says that she believes only ThunderClan is strong enough to make it through the prophecy alone, but only if ThunderClan lets all the other clans perish, and tries to get Jayfeather to believe that this is the right thing to do. Not only is this whole subplot only making everyone's situations worse by having the medicine cats not speaking to each other and building up tension between clans, but Yellowfang feels completely out of character here as a fear-mongering, paranoid busybody, when Yellowfang is usually portrayed to be laid-back, wise, and clear-headed. On top of all that, all this pressure to figure out the meaning of the prophecy turns out to be nothing. Both the Power of Three and Find the Fourth Cat prophecies mean nothing because the powers of the cats are never the deciding factor in any major story events. The Dark Forest is pulling all of the strings, and the events in these books would have played out the exact same way whether or not Jayfeather figured out the prophecy. Especially the Fourth Cat prophecy, which is built up to be the make it or break it stakes of the last two books. Yellowfang tells Jayfeather that if they don't figure out who this last cat is, everyone is pretty much dead. But guess what? The fourth cat is Firestar, and telling him that he was the fourth cat all along means, you guessed it, nothing. Because Firestar would have done what was his duty regardless of prophecy or not. This is probably Omen of the Star's worst setup and payoff because there were so many other obvious choices the hunters could have made to be more narratively interesting and thematically compelling. Hollyleaf, Ivypool, Breezepelt, Soul, or pretty much anyone else as the fourth cat would have made more sense. And don't tell me that it couldn't have been Breezepelt or Soul because they aren't related to Firestar. That isn't specified as a rule in the fourth cat prophecy. Firestar is not kin of his own kin after all. Yellowfang isn't the only character to get mistreated as the story grasps at straws to try and find meaning. Rock is given one of the most insultingly idiotic speeches I've ever had the misfortune of reading. Jayfeather, who is this? Lionblaze whispered. Dovewing was staring up at Rock, frozen in horror. Is he from StarClan? Rock growled. Not StarClan. This was my home before StarClan was ever dreamed of. Jayfeather could feel confusion sparking from his brother. How do you know this cat? Lionblaze murmured as he peered up at Rock. Rock leaned over the lip of the ledge, his head weaving from side to side like a snake about to strike. Jayfeather and I have known each other for moons, he snarled. Can he see us? Dovewing's gaze was fixed on Rock's bloated gray eyes. Rock straightened up, his tail flicking ominously. I never realized your companions were so mouse-brained. I summoned them in a dream, and they stand around asking questions like kits on their first day out of the nursery. Jayfeather stepped forward. You summoned us? Jayfeather blinked at him. Did you think you were the only cat with powers over other cats' dreams? Sneering, he showed his teeth. You idiots! Rock arched his back, spitting. Lionblaze drew himself up in response, his tail brushing up, claws scraping against the rock. Just listen to him, Jayfeather warned in a whisper. This is all your fault, Rock yowled. You are the three. If you had never been born, the Dark Forest would not have risen. Jayfeather stiffened in shock. We never asked to be born. But you were, Rock spat. You fulfilled a prophecy written at the beginning of time and gave power to enemies who should long have since faded from the memories of all cats. He paced the tiny ledge, twisting like a cornered rat, back and forth, his skin rippling with anger. Now because of your existence, the clans face their darkest moment. He froze suddenly, leaning forward from the ledge. You clan cats hold memories too long. You remember dead warriors and dwell on old enemies, passing on stories of battles that should have been left behind, not picked over like rotting carcasses. Jayfeather swallowed, bristling with indignation that Rock would scorn the clan's heritage. The clans have brought this battle upon themselves, Rock snarled. You bear grudges too long and refuse to let go of cats so cruel and unnatural they deserve to be forgotten. You keep them alive in your memories, and you let them find kindred spirits at the edges of StarClan where no star dares shine. He shook his head, his spine softening. Why couldn't you have just let them fade into the past? So, wait. Rock. You're trying to tell me that the clan cats have brought this upon themselves because they have the audacity to remember cats that were still alive when they were alive? Unless you've forgotten, Firestar, Graystripe, and all these cats were alive when Tigerstar and most of these other Dark Forest cats were alive too. How is it their fault for remembering people that they met? People that they vanquished? And how is Jayfeather, Lionblaze, and Dovewing being alive the catalyst for this Dark Forest problem? Did their birth somehow open up a gateway for the Dark Forest to enter the real world? Because Brambleclaw was able to communicate with the Dark Forest back in New Prophecy. So I really have no idea what you're trying to say here, Rock, but it is just... Okay. Anyway, only The Last Hope seems to have a strong theme, which is destiny. The characters say it so many times that it'd be a little hard to miss. And this sort of gives a conclusion to the Power of Three's theme. Jayfeather, Lionblaze, Dovewing, Ivypool, Cinderheart, and Firestar all have to choose to believe in their destiny and follow it best they can. Destiny, though, is one of those vague themes. It's easy to write, but hard to write well. On an enjoyment level, I think Last Hope executes this well enough, but on a literary level, it's really boring and a very clumsy way to tie all these books together. Besides all that, Destiny is definitely not the main theme for any of the other books, so it's one of those situations where it came in too little too late. One theme Omen of the Stars really wants to tackle, but yet again fails at, is good versus evil and how people can be good even if they sometimes do bad things. Cats from all 4 clans have been training in the Dark Forest, and most of them believed this was a good thing, because it was making them a stronger warrior for their clan. Obviously, the Dark Forest cats have different plans in mind, and hope to sway the clan cats to fight with them against their own clans and StarClan. On paper, this idea is definitely compelling, and I could totally see why the hunters would go down this path. There's nothing more epic in stories than the good old good guys versus the bad guys plot, and it would have been a big bang to end the series on, while also still exploring the warriors theme that has held true throughout every single book in this franchise. People are neither good nor bad, they are shades of gray. And sometimes the right thing to do is not as obvious as black and white. The problem here, though, is that in Omen of the Stars, the line between black and white has never been more obvious. The only real bad guys Omen of the Stars has are the cats who live in the Dark Forest. And Breezepelt. And Soul. But Soul is just a giant waste of time, so we aren't going to talk about him. It is obvious from start to finish that once the clan cats training in the Dark Forest know what's really going on, they'll GTFO. There's not enough allure to whatever the Dark Forest is hoping to do to justify that kind of genocide. And the cats in the Dark Forest start to become so cartoonishly evil after Night Whispers that it's mind-boggling how any of them would ever think that these loyal clan cats would join them. Even under threat of death, which, yes, does actually happen in The Last Hope. Especially when they're constantly telling these clan cats how their training is making them better warriors for their respective clans. And yes, they eventually start to call the Dark Forest trainees clanmates, but there's never any bonds established to make the title of clanmate mean anything. Remember that one time when I sliced you to pieces and didn't stop because that would show weakness in front of Broken Star and he probably would have killed me for it? Oh yeah, boy, we sure do have some good times here, my buddy Palamigo from another clan. Take Hawkfrost and Ivypool, for example. Now, here's a character dynamic I see a lot of fan art and headcanons about, but when it comes to the actual books themselves, there's only build-up with next to no follow-up or payoff. Ivypool and Hawkfrost never develop their relationship past the first initial training sessions, and so when Ivypool faces him in the last book and can finally reveal her loyalty to ThunderClan above her loyalty to the Dark Forest, it doesn't pack the emotional punch it should, because there's nothing between Hawkfrost and Ivypool besides training sessions where Hawkfrost was an asshole and Ivypool was like, "Yes, senpai, please step on me." If this relationship had been given time to grow, whether romantically or platonically, mind you, it could have been a knockout part of the arc. Maybe Ivypool and Hawkfrost could have developed more of a mutual friendship, and Ivypool would feel a struggle over betraying Hawkfrost or Dovewing, or maybe feel pity, regret, or conflicted feelings about Hawkfrost's actions. Maybe Ivypool could have pretended to feel even more for Hawkfrost as a way to get into the inner circle of the Dark Forest, and then later regret using Hawkfrost's feelings. But there's part of your problem with the Dark Forest in trying to lay the groundwork for any kind of theme with them. They don't really express any kind of emotion or character traits other than ambition, bloodlust, and just evil! Tigerstar is supposedly the big bad of the whole Dark Forest, but we never learn anything we don't already know about him. He still just wants revenge on Firestar, which is so far removed from what our protagonists really care about that it becomes increasingly difficult for the audience to care about it as well. If the Urnz really wanted to sell the story to us and believe that these Clan Cat trainees would actually join Tigerstar's Dark Forest clan, the cats in the Dark Forest needed to become more relatable. Or at least fake the exterior of something more relatable. Or, if you really want to hammer in the good versus evil theme, you need more Breeze Pelts. More cats who honestly want what the Dark Forest is offering, who want to rise up to the top in guts and glory, and reign supreme over their clanmates with a passion that rivals Tigerstar's ambition from the prophecies begin. I wouldn't be much of a fan of this latter approach, since villains like that are pretty one-note, and our heroes aren't really a good fit to combat that kind of villain, but at least it's more thematically compelling and interesting than the mushy compromise of neither we get in the books. The living Dark Forest trainees are relatable but loyal cats, yet again excluding Breezepelt. And the Dark Forest cats are cartoonishly evil, twirling their mustaches and cackling all the way up until their plan obviously fails. And I say obviously not just because this is Warriors and the good guys need to win at the end of the day, but the Dark Forest plan is just so bad and doomed to fail that it's hard to feel that invested. I have a hard time believing that the Dark Forest Cats members truly outnumber the living Clan Cats and StarClan, since we only ever hear of about 10 of them. Especially since StarClan and the Dark Forest work off the rule that once living cats forget about you, you fade away. So the Dark Forest is really counting on their trainees to help them win this battle. But yet again, the problem with that is that the Dark Forest is never offering anything that the trainees would want. They don't want their clanmates to all die and for the warrior code to be abolished. And the Dark Forest cats never make a strong enough case for the living cats to become martyrs for their cause. On top of all that, they are still offering training to these cats who are obviously going to betray them to save their clanmates. So in the end, the Dark Forest is just screwing itself over. They also never even say what their real goal is other than to destroy the clans. If the Dark Forest accomplished this, then what? Would Tigerstar put an end to the clans forever? Or would he make a new Tiger Clan and have the living cats worship the Dark Forest instead of StarClan? And what would that even really accomplish? StarClan would still be around, and it recently would have just gotten a big boost in numbers considering a lot of good cats probably just died. It might have actually been more interesting to see the Dark Forest succeed mid-series, destroy the clans, and then have the 3 and the remaining clan cats take back the lake, or all work undercover to slowly build up their cause and then take Tigerstar out once and for all. You know, actually give the story a low, where the heroes have been beaten down and now need to somehow overcome the impossible. It's good story writing. But what I think Omen of the Stars really missed out on was not making redemption and forgiveness the main themes of the story. It already has so many prime examples that could have really brought this theme home, but misses the opportunity to capitalize on them. Jayfeather and Lionblaze's arcs could have revolved around needing to learn to forgive Leafpool and Squirrelflight. This is touched on briefly in the books, but yet again is extremely underplayed. Dovewing and Ivypool both need to redeem themselves to each other and learn to forgive each other's mistakes. Hollyleaf comes back in and we see her go through these issues herself. She learns to forgive herself and Leafpool for everything that's happened. Flametail's death could have been used as an opportunity to push this theme as well. Jayfeather feels guilty about not being able to save him, and Dawnpelt wants revenge on Jayfeather. This plot thread would have easily tied into a redemption and forgiveness story. Tigerheart is an enthusiastic warrior with a lot of trust and love in his heart, and it would have been a perfect fit for this theme to show what happens when you're too forgiving and you get yourself hurt as a result. And Breezepelt is the shining example at the end of the day of what happens when you can't learn to forgive, and how it causes his downfall. And all of this could have tied directly into how the Dark Forest was written. The Dark Forest wants revenge because they feel they have been wronged. They didn't get to go to StarClan's hunting grounds, and they were sent away to rot in the place with no stars. Their conflict should have revolved around this betrayal. After all, we all know that some of these cats didn't deserve to be in the Dark Forest. Even cats like Tigerstar, who did some horrible things for the clans, also did a lot of great things, and this would have been the perfect setup for the Dark Forest cats to explain how their lives as warriors were only remembered for the wrong they've done, rather than being honored as the noble and proud warriors that they were. Ivypool could have spent her time spying by actually trying to get to know the Dark Forest cats, learn who they are, who they were, and find sympathy in their plight, even if she knows what they did and what they stand for is wrong. Ivypool could have been the key to bringing all these vengeful and bitter souls to rest. And yeah, I'm suggesting that by the end of Omen of the Stars, we could have maybe seen redemption arcs for nearly all the Dark Forest cats, instead of StarClan needing to come back and help put these bad guys back in their place and back into Cat Hell, where they could most assuredly rise again whenever they wanted. StarClan could have learned to forgive these cats, especially ones like Thistleclaw and Pelt, and surely many more that didn't really deserve to be there in the first place. We could have seen Bluestar forgiving Thistleclaw and honoring his life as a warrior. We could see Ashfur stepping in and making a case for some of these cats, where he apologizes for what he did and says that it's not fair for him to have gone to StarClan where some of these other cats didn't. And I'm not suggesting that everyone gets redeemed, or that they all leave together hugging and kissing each other because everyone is just so misunderstood and yada yada yada. But like I said before, the biggest prevailing theme in the Warriors franchise is the idea that no one is all good or all bad. StarClan before this series was never a "you must not be this evil to enter," but instead as a resting ground of ancestors. If some of the Dark Forest cats were forgiven and allowed to join StarClan, it would then also make the conflict with the remaining Dark Forest cats even more emotional. The fight would now be against evil cats who had a chance to be forgiven and chose instead to hold on to their hate. Furthermore, Jayfeather, Lionblaze, and Dovewing's powers might have been more crucial to the plot in this way. Dovewing could learn about Cat's problems through her powers and Ivypool spying. Jayfeather could talk to StarClan and walk in Cat's dreams to help them on a more spiritual level, and Lionblaze could have challenged the remaining few Dark Forest cats on his own, finally putting his power to the real test as he takes on these cats for the sake of all clans and not just ThunderClan. It's not a perfect way to somehow use their powers in a meaningful way, but at this point, without completely rewriting the story, I don't know how else you'd tie their powers in better. Maybe you guys can think of some cool headcanons and put them below. Even with all of my problems with Omen of the Stars though, it does manage to end on a pretty spectacular note that hits a lot of my heartstrings as a Warriors fan, even if it's an absolute literary disaster. I'll admit that certain elements in the final battle really nailed some of the emotional aspects it was going for, and we got some satisfying conclusions to many character arcs. Even though I recognize it for all its shortcomings, I can't say that I didn't enjoy the ending for what it was. Last Hope is easily my favorite book in the Omen of the Stars arc, but in order to read it, you've got to get through some of the worst written warrior books that the series has to offer. In the end, we can't change what Omen of the Stars is, and honestly, while I feel like it's the result of some rushed deadlines and us only seeing what could have been the first draft of the story, I was still enjoying reading Omen of the Stars after losing interest in the series years ago. I'm glad I can finally say that I read the whole thing and actually enjoyed several parts of it, even if I found the whole to be a bit lacking. Every Warriors arc has problems, and I think Omen of the Stars' problems were just a little bit more obvious to people than some of the other series. But we shouldn't forget what Omen of the Stars did accomplish, and at the end of the day, at least HarperCollins didn't leave this series well enough alone after this, and we've since gotten a ton of better books to read. I guess what I'm trying to say is, thank you, Omen of the Stars, for being a complete mess. It's definitely given me something to talk about. I'm Simi, I'll talk to y'all next time.